What's up, everybody? Welcome into this NFL Sunday edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast here on YouTube. Hope you are all set and ready for NFL game day. I know I am. It's crazy how quickly the NFL season goes. It's already week 9. There's only 8 regular season Packer games left. One of those is obviously not today, with Green Bay already playing Thursday Night Football, but I am still jacked up for this slate of games. A little bit later, I'm going to go over 3 Packers that I think could use some additional playing time as the season progresses and Green Bay looks to make a strong end to the season. But let's kick things off by going over a couple of the games that I'm going to be watching today and just kind of preview a little bit. I think it really starts with Drew Brees versus Tom Brady, Sunday Night Football. That in and of itself is a reason to watch this game, but there's certainly a baked-in reason as well if you're a Packer fan. Packers already lost to Tampa. They already beat New Orleans. So as you look down the road and start looking at those potential tiebreak scenarios for a number 1 or number 2 seed, it's obviously advantageous if the Saints were to win this game and Tampa Bay were to lose. You don't want it to come down to those tiebreakers, but if it does, obviously Green Bay has it with the Saints and they would not with Tampa Bay. So another just really good reason to watch that game if you're a Packer fan. You'd like Green Bay just to kind of take care of business on their own and not necessarily need help, but hey, if you're looking for things to cheer for in this game, I don't think it's too much to ask to cheer for New Orleans and just kind of enjoy that aspect of it with a little bit of help maybe for Green Bay down the road. My second game that I'm really watching, Colts-Ravens, and this has nothing to do with the Packers or any sort of potential playoff matchup or anything down the road. This is strictly due to a really fun Ravens offense, especially running the football, and a very talented, athletic, and dominant Colts defense when it comes to stopping the run. This is strength versus strength. Watch the trenches in this game. It should be a ton of fun. Lamar Jackson just brings such a crazy element to that offense and what he's able to do, and really just can't play a traditional defense against him. The Colts are really athletic, really stout up front. DeForest Buckner, getting him from San Francisco, has been an absolute game changer for them. So that's another really fun matchup that I don't even know that I care about the score. I don't even know that I care about how Lamar Jackson or Phillip Rivers or anything else. I'm just going to be watching the trenches, specifically when the Ravens are in football. And then Ravens have the football, and then when the Colts have it, it's always fun just to watch Quentin Nelson as well. So what I'm going to be watching for in that game. Number 3, Bears-Titans. This one, of course, you have a little bit more of an NFC North rooting interest. You never want the Bears to win. I think this is also a really fun matchup. You've got that, I don't know if I can say high-powered Titans offense, but they're more dynamic than I think they get credit for. And I think, just what Derrick Henry can do. Their receivers have been much better. And then Ryan Tannehill really has been one of the stories of football over the course of the last year and a half. And how the Bears defense, which is still very, very talented, handles that Titans offense. I think that's going to be one to watch. And really, after this week, Green Bay has 3 games remaining against the Bears and the Titans. So if you want to see what's coming down the road with 2 games against the Bears and 1 against the Titans, this is a really great one to keep your eye on as well. See how both of these teams are playing, what they like to do. I know you're not exactly scouting for the Packers and going to be taking away, any hints from that game, but still fun to see what's kind of coming around the corner. And then last but not least, Seahawks Bills. This is one of those classic noon matchups where the West Coast team has to go all the way to the East Coast and play a noon game. Those always don't usually end up well for the West Coast team. And I think Buffalo is really playing well. I think Seattle, while they're playing fantastic football, I think they might be a little overrated. I think that defense is really suspect. And I think while Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett are fantastic, I think they do have some weaknesses along that offensive line. They don't really have a great tight end that's going to be able to stretch the field and do some unique things. Chris Carson's been in and out of the lineup. They don't have a complimentary running back after him. And I really think this Buffalo team is good, and I think they can take advantage of Seattle's defense while also making life tough for Russell Wilson on the other side of the football. I think this is going to be a really great gauge just to see how good are both of these teams. Can Seattle go in, East Coast trip coming from the West Coast, noon game, and beat a really talented and maybe a team that doesn't get the credit that they deserve in the Buffalo Bills? Or can Buffalo hold serve, win at home against arguably, again, one of the best teams in football in Seattle? And again, Green Bay rooting interest here. Of course, you want the Bills to win. That number 1 seed is looking more and more like it's going to come down potentially to Seattle and Green Bay, dependent upon what happens with Tampa Bay in the NFC South as well. But I would say it's likely Tampa, Green Bay, or Seattle that gets that 1 seed. So hopefully New Orleans and Buffalo can come away with a couple wins and maybe make things a little bit easier for Green Bay. That's never exactly how it works. It's always going to be complicated and down to the wire when the season ends, but certainly you can still have a rooting interest in Sunday's slate of games. All right, let me get to my main topic. 3 Packers that I think are deserving of more playing time as this season goes along, and I think you have to start number 1 with Tim Boyle. I can't really say it. I have to say Tim Boyle, but I'm being somewhat facetious there. I would love to say Tim Boyle, but I guess that Aaron Rodgers guy is playing pretty decent so far. So in all sincerity, number one, Montrevius Adams. And I say this as my number one player that I think deserves more playing time, even still with some level of trepidation, because Montrevius has kind of broken our hearts over the course of the last couple of seasons. There's been this, desire for Green Bay to get him on the field and for him to play well. Former third-round draft pick has shown flashes, and then he always seems to let you down. And I'm not asking for like a starting role with like 50 snaps a game, but him and Kingsley Keke are the only two players across the defensive line that have positive grades for me so far. And this last game against San Francisco, remember, their offensive line was pretty much intact in that game. It was mostly Trent Williams that was missing. And I thought Montrevius Adams he did get more playing time in that game, and I thought he played really, really well again in the snaps that he got. They increased his playing time, and that was really, to me, a big test, because it's one thing to come in for like 8 to 10 snaps a game and have a couple flash plays, but can you hold up through the rigors of 20, 30, 35 snaps in a game? He showed that he could do that against San Francisco, and it is time for him to play more. And of course you want Kenny Clark to play the lion's share of those snaps, but I think after that, if you can keep the snaps somewhat even between the Lancasters, the Lowrys, the Montrevius Adams, the Kingsley Kekes, I think all of them, playing like 25 to 35 snaps per game rather than any of them having to play 45 to 50. If you can keep all of their snap counts lower, I think that gives all of them an advantage to keep those guys fresh. So I would love to see Montrevius Adams get more playing time. And again, he and Kingsley Keke, the only two players along the defensive line, that includes Kenny Clark, the only two that are graded in the positive for me so far this season. Number 2 on my list, and I mentioned this name a little bit over the course of the last couple weeks, that's Malik Taylor. And, to start off, first of all, Davante Adams is going to get the lion's share of the targets. Number 2, Allen Lazard's going to come back, which is only going to limit his snaps more. 3, that they still have faith in Montrevius Adams, wide receiver. Marquez Valdes-Scantling at wide receiver. So those are probably going to be your top 3. But I would like to see Malik Taylor be the next one up over Darius Shepard and over Equanimeous St. Brown. I think he has worked his way into the worthwhile of being put in that position and taking those snaps. I don't think Equanimeous St. Brown or Darius Shepard have really shown anything that they are going to be changing anything out on the field when they're in there. They're not dynamic enough. And I get wanting to see Equanimeous St. Brown maybe a little bit more and maybe seeing what he can do, but Malik Taylor is the player to me who stood out the most of that next batch of wide receivers. His routes have been better. He's been able to gain separation. There were a couple routes downfield against Minnesota that he worked his way open. I thought his third down, I don't know if it was third down, but his completion for like 20 plus yards against Minnesota was really, really good. I also think he's one of the best run blockers at wide receiver on the team as well, which is something that Matt LaFleur and that offense cares about also. So yes, Adams 1. And then, Allen Lazard 2, probably still MVS 3, but I would really like to see Malik Taylor get slotted in that number 4 role, not including my number 3 guy on my list of players that I'd like to see more of, and that's Tyler Irvin, who I know still is going to line up in the slot, and I know that there is a log jam at that running back position with A.J. Dillon and Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones already ahead of Tyler Irvin. We know he's going to get some of those plays in the slot. Once he's healthy again, he's going to be the primary kick and punt returner once he's fully recovered from the wrist injury. But that last game against San Francisco, I know he didn't do anything like mind-blowing, but it just left me wanting more Tyler Irvin, whether it's in the slot, whether it's at running back. I would love to see a little bit more formations with both he and Aaron Jones both in the backfield together. I know neither of them can necessarily block, but I just think it gives you a lot of different options, a lot of flexibility, a lot of versatility, and I just frankly, I want to see more Tyler Irvin. So those are the 3 players that, as we complete this season and go through the final 8 weeks of the regular season, that I would love to see more of. Again, Montrevius Adams, Tyler Irvin, and Malik Taylor in no specific order. So hoping to see more of those players as the season goes along. Certainly not at the expense of maybe the starters at those given positions, but I still think that there's some talent there that Green Bay can utilize maybe to a greater extent than they have so far this season. That's going to do it for me. Enjoy your NFL Sunday. Check back here tomorrow for an all-new edition of the Pack-A-Day podcast on YouTube. Make sure to check our long-form edition of the podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.